There are commissioner questions at this point. Commissioner Mitchell?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you did any analysis of areas in uncertified LCPs and how it correlates to the workload of the staff. Because, for example, we have this Venice issue today that people are in public testimony. We've had a lot of issues in the LA region lately, and yet, how much does that impact on what the staff work that could be done in other places if there was an LCP in Los Angeles or other regions for that matter? I'm just pointing that out as an example.
We have done some of that. We haven't been able to put together the data for today, but I'd be happy to bring that forward in the next couple of months in a form that, there's some data that needs to be quality control checked and put together, but it does show that, in terms of the large jurisdictions, something we've talked about before, like Santa Monica Mountains of LA County, City of Newport Beach, City of Solana Beach, Venice, Pacific Palisades. These are areas where there are a lot of permits that the Commission, applications that the Commission receives. Many of them are processed as waivers or more minor items, but it's still a significant workload. And one of our constant struggles is the balance between, it's different kinds of work. To work on a planning update is one big item that takes a lot of upfront analytic time and assessment versus trying to deal with 100 gnats flying around your head, which is sometimes the minor permitting problem, but it's still a significant workload. So I can work on bringing some of that forward in the future.
Well, going back to the discussion about the budget augmentation and the grant funding to the local governments, I think that if we are fortunate enough to get that funding going in the future budget, that we are able to sort of focus those resources on the areas to reduce the staff workload so that we are able to do our work more efficiently and not have the gnats, as you say.
And you're absolutely right. That's the most important reason for focusing on certifying the uncertified areas is to do that and to take the Commission back to the point of doing the comprehensive planning work that it really was tasked to do in the bigger picture. That's why Santa Monica Mountains LCP, for example, has been a priority for certification, because there's a significant workload there that is not planning or statewide level concerns.
All right, Commissioner Vargas and then Commissioner Turnbull-Saunders.
Thank you. First, thank you. This is a great report. It's incredibly helpful. I hope we can use it to kind of build and continue the conversation about kind of enhancing the strategic plan, and in particular, my pet issue of kind of creating metrics by which we can judge our progress in the strategic planning. Last year we had this conversation, and I think we kind of seem to have come to the conclusion that it was very difficult. We just didn't have a way of kind of measuring things, and as you said, the process is very dynamic. So, a lot of kind of goals that we have are not necessarily, in our control, and it's contingent upon a lot of outside factors. But what I'm seeing here in this report are a lot of really great graphs that can help us to get to a point of somehow capturing goals on a year-by-year basis of what we can be shooting for. For instance, you have in here graphs that are measuring average processing times for LCP amendments and how they're kind of going further and further down every single year, year after year. You're showing us graphs in terms of, since the 80s to now, how we've kind of been reducing the amount of uncertified segments that there are over time. You're showing us graphs where how we're kind of kicking through a particular amount of volume year after year of certified LCP updates. Those are all great things, and I don't think it would be hard to kind of go the next step, especially since a lot of our goals kind of have these open-ended kind of statements of let's, finish all, if that's the goal, to kind of complete all uncertified segments. If we can kind of notice a trend of which way we're going on this thing, if we're doing X amount of, uncertified segments a year, can we just make those kind of goals that we can shoot for? I'd really love to see that. I hope we can get the rest of our commissioners excited in that kind of conversation again and work with staff. It seems like you guys staff is on their way to creating something that's incredibly helpful and productive for the discussion of the progress that we're making towards completing these goals. And so I commend you for that. And I just hope we can kind of work a little bit more towards actually creating year-over-year metrics to be able to gauge our success. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Vargas. That's absolutely what we'd like to do. And I think, as I explained last year, we're in the middle of a data management system transition to a new system. And so part of our challenge has been to be able to find the data and put it together in a way that we could use it. And that's still ongoing. So as that data becomes more available and more reliable, we'll be doing that. But I agree completely. These are the kinds of measures that explain our program and can tell the story that needs to be told.
Thank you. Commissioner Turnbull Saunders, please.
Thank you. Dr. Lester, I really appreciate the time that was taken to put together this extensive report. As a relatively new commissioner, this was particularly helpful. And maybe we can, when we continue the conversation later, we can touch on what you mentioned was a 6-month projection if we were able to get a budget augmentation. And I may not be articulating that correctly, but looking at what those numbers look like, I think would be helpful in our secondary conversation later today.
Okay. Commissioner Garcia.
Thank you. Great report, great information, Dr. Lester. I'm also wondering, because I think we always come back to this idea that we have our state's, largest city and the second largest city in the country that still poses challenges for us when it comes to the LCP issue. And do we have a plan in particular to address the Los Angeles issue? Because I find that, it doesn't seem like we get very far with it. And have we engaged, or are we actively engaging the new mayor's office in ensuring that this become a priority for him on the city side?
So I'll go back to something Commissioner Vargas just said about even though we can start to operationalize some of our success and what needs to still be done, there are a lot of variables that we don't control. And so the LCP certification and amendment process is something that's inherently in the local government's primary responsibility. And some of that has to do with their capacity and their commitment to getting the job done. So even if we allocated all of our resources to the City of LA, we can't control everything and make it happen 100%. So that's one thing to keep in mind. That said, the strategy that we've tried to embrace now is and the augmentation has been an important part of being able to move forward with this, is to find the incentives for local governments to do that, and that's the LCP grant program. And so we did award the $1 million that we had available this year to various local governments who asked for support to do their LCP work, and Venice being one of those segments in the City of LA. And Jack Ainsworth has been working at the staff levels and talking to various political representatives in order to try to move that forward as well and explain the importance of that, both in terms of what it would mean for the City of LA, for example, and also for the Commission and being able to free up our resources.
And I also think we should think broadly. We do, I think, a nice job of advocacy when it's important in Sacramento, certainly on important bills or when it comes to the budget. And I know that that Jack is, he's phenomenal at everything that he does with the amount of work that he has on his plate and calls he gets from all of us. But I think that maybe strategically, to get Los Angeles, at least in my opinion, on board, really on board, we almost have to have a mini lobbying effort. And I know that we have traditionally focused on our Sacramento lobbying and our Sacramento government relations program, but There's also local government relations, which I know that we do at the staff level, but I think we should, I think, investment in local government relations done by both our staff formally, because we do it informally now, as well as through our advocacy. I think a lot of us up here have some probably good relationships with the mayor and other council members. I think could go a long way into getting them to understand how important that LCP process is, not just for Los Angeles, but for the entire state of California, because their inaction is really, it's really causing issues for our ability to do other types of work throughout the state. So I think that LA needs to be more aggressive in coming to the table, and I think we certainly have done our part, but I think we also have to engage a little bit more about letting them know how important it is for them to do this. And quite frankly, if this is going to happen, in my opinion, the iron's hot right now. You have a new mayor, you have new council members. If this is going to happen and become a priority, it's going to have to get on the plate now, because a year from now, they're going to have all these other issues, and 2 years from now, there'll be another election, and so this is the time. And so if there's something that we can do, I think I think we're ready to do it, at least the LA delegation that's sitting here. But I think we need something a little bit more strategic.
I think that's a great idea, and I'll talk to Jack about what we could do going forward. It is a question of capacity, for Jack anyway.